Hey everyone, I'm Mary Flom with Mogul, and we're bringing you a very special edition of Ask a Mogul Anything. We're joined by the amazing, wonderful Rebecca Minkoff, fashion designer to the stars, and she's here to tell us so many wonderful things today as we ask Rebecca, our wonderful Mogul of the Day, anything. So if you have not already, please go on to www.onmogul.com and submit your questions to Rebecca. We're taking questions live for the next hour. Ask her anything. It's at www.onmogul.com. Hit Rebecca up with questions in the comment section, and she'll be talking to you about everything from motherhood to fashion to what's hot for fall. So we wanted to start with what we've been doing with all of our wonderful Mogul speakers in the series, and we're going to be doing a little bit of what we call a lightning round. No right or wrong questions, but you are on the hot seat. So Rebecca, first off, ideal vacation, mountains or beach?
Definitely and always beach.
Wonderful. And when it comes to pizza, deep dish or thin crust?
Sadly, gluten-free thin crust.
She's got restraint. All right, heels, flats, boots, or athletic shoes?
It's all about the booty.
And we're going to see more of that later. And she's got some beautiful booties to show. Window seat or aisle?
Lately aisle because I have to pee a lot.
Taylor Swift or Beyonce?
Definitely Beyonce.
Beatles or Elvis?
Ooh, I would shack up with Elvis, but I'd listen to the Beatles.
Very good answer. Favorite form of communication? Phone call, email, or text?
Text.
First thing you do in the morning?
I make myself coffee to wake myself up.
And the last thing you do at night?
I'll usually go through my feed. Lately I have not been able to finish it, but I just like to see what happened during the day.
The most frequented website?
Probably, well, I have Flipboard, so I kind of just get all my news through that. And then I'd say, man, that's a tough one. Fashionista, Refinery 29.
And Mogul.
Of course Mogul, that goes without saying.
Favorite reality show ever?
I really liked the first season, this is going to date me, of The Real World, because people didn't know what was happening yet, and reality TV was just starting, and so there was an innocence to how terrible everything was.
Well, a bit of an authenticity, right?
Yes.
Before it became current reality.
Manufactured.
Right. The one movie you could watch forever?
I would say I hate watching movies more than once, so no.
Okay. And if you had to sing karaoke to just one song, what would it be?
It's Got You, Babe.
Excellent. We love Sonny and Cher. Biggest guilty pleasure?
I really love a croissant. I do eat gluten when I'm in Europe, so I usually try and have 2 to 3 croissants a day.
Ever partake in a cronut?
Yes. I wasn't allowed to eat sugar when I was pregnant, and that was my one treat, digging into the cronut.
And complete the phrase. If I could tell my 20-year-old self just one thing, it would be?
I would tell myself that everything you want to have happen is going to happen, so just enjoy the ride.
And complete the phrase. To be a leader or to be a mogul is?
Fearless.
Wonderful. Well, we're so excited to have you today. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start taking some questions.
Okay.
And again, anyone who wants to contribute some additional questions, we're at www.onmogul.com. You can ask Rebecca Minkoff anything. Just hit up the comment section and add your question, and Rebecca will be taking it here live. First question. Hi, Rebecca. Why did you start designing, and what motivated you and still motivates you?
So I first started designing because I originally wanted a dress that my mom wouldn't buy me, but she taught me how to sew it instead, and I became addicted to the idea of making things and customizing things to my body, and the power I felt in that, I knew that if I was to keep going with that, then I could help other people feel better and just feel more confident in their daily choices to show who they are.
Wonderful. We've got a question from Stephanie. Hi, Rebecca. I read an article about the innovations in your New York retail location. From your experience, what do you think is the future of retail?
I think the future of retail for brick and mortar specifically, it's going to be about entertainment. It's going to be about more than just going there to shop. So you're going to go there for a seminar or hear someone you like speak. You're going to go there for a coffee or a juice. It's going to be more of these hubs where people can actually gather and making Instagrammable moments within the stores. The stores are going to become more about areas that are Instagrammable, or you want to share them with your friends. And I think between those two things, that's what retail will slowly become.
We've got a question saying, "Hi Rebecca, your New York Fashion Week show was amazing. When did you come up with the idea of bringing it to the streets of New York City, and how much planning went into the show?"
So my brother and I came up with the idea probably in February or March, and it really took that long to plan it out. And it was endless meetings with the city, the mayor's office, architectural drawings and street maps, us pleading before different boards in Soho, getting denied, then having the mayor's office come back in and save the day. So it was a lot of work to do that, and a lot of planning, but we pulled it off without a hitch. So it was really exciting.
And so for those of you who weren't lucky enough to see some of the footage from the show, it was amazing. It was in the streets of New York City.
Yes, it was on the street. They walked out of our store, down the street, maybe half a block, then turned around and came back. And what was great is we called it Runway to Retail. And so immediately following the show, you could go shop all those looks.
In terms of, but what actually goes into planning a runway show, what year was your first?
My first presentation was in 2009.
And did you sleep at all? I mean, how intense is it during the run?
Those days you didn't sleep. These days with See by Wear, you do get probably 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, because back then you were waiting for samples to come in, you're living in the sample room, everything arrives the night before. You know, there's a scene in a documentary about Fashion Week where, you know, the last dress is whisked away, you know, from the sample room on the morning of the show. So it really did have that feel. But now with See by Wear, the clothing is organized, it's, you know, set up in the office. We style it about 2 weeks beforehand to give all of our partners a chance to photograph it and know what we're going to sell, so that they can back into that. So it's pretty much drama-free now.
So it brings us to another question, though, about the whole notion of the runway shows. Here's a question. There's some talk about Fashion Week becoming a thing of the past as some designers start to use social media to launch collections and don't do the full-on runway shows anymore. What do you think about all of this? And this person also notes, "I hope this doesn't happen. I really love watching the pageantry of the runway shows, but I'm worried that runway shows might go away at some point."
I think we're in a time of huge transition and huge change, and I think that everyone has to figure out what works for themselves. For us, maybe it's not about having the top 10 editor-in-chiefs there, but it's about entertaining and showing our consumer what this is and what the show is, and that you can buy it. So I think for us, it's always going to be a hybrid. It'll always be celebrities, editors, bloggers, and our consumer all coming to the show to celebrate the culmination of the season. And other people might just do it on social, but I think there's something to be said still with being there, hearing the music, seeing the clothes live. That can't be replicated just behind an iPhone.
Do you feel the pressure, though? Do you feel the pressure to always one-up yourself from year to year, to do something different, to do something jaw-dropping?
I think there's definitely pressure. We're entertaining, right? So you always got to make sure that your show is interesting.
Okay, next question. What do you think was the #1 most critical thing you did that made your business so successful in an industry with so much noise and competition?
I think that when I launched my handbag, it was in a white space. Contemporary handbags were just starting to happen. There was maybe 2 other brands. So there was definitely a white space for that price point and that need. And hitting that, I think, is key to starting any business. If you want to just be like someone else, or you want to have something that's similar to, and that brand has already existed and has legs, it's really hard to break through. So you have to find out what makes you unique, what makes you stand alone, and then you have to have great communication skills, or surround yourself with people who don't have your weaknesses. I think is key.
All right, here's a question. "Hi Rebecca, such an honor to have you take part in Ask a Mogul Anything. What's your approach to finding a work-life balance, and how do you find the balance, balancing the demands of family with career?"
So this question is asked, I think, in every interview and every panel, and I think it's being asked because there isn't an answer yet. And I think that women have more rights now than ever, and more freedoms now than ever, but I think we're still trying to figure out, how do you make that all work? I can only speak for myself as a female, and as a mom, I want to be there with my kids. I want to take my kids to school. I want to play with them at night, and I'm sacrificing going out to the fun parties and I'm sacrificing maybe time with my husband to do those things. So I think I don't call it balance, I call it juggling. And I kind of look at my week and I say, where can I give? Where can I see my children more or less? And testing my boundaries. So I know now that if I have to leave town, I don't leave town for more than 5 days without them. If I am going to be out of town more, I take them with me. So I think each woman has to get a sense of what works for her, and it's not perfect. I would love to come home, cook dinner, hang out with my kids, put them to bed, and then see my husband. That doesn't happen. So it's like we see our children, and we maybe get a few words in, and then we collapse. So I think it's always a work in progress.
I think so often there's this illusion, though, for all of us, women in general, not just working moms, but I think it really reaches a heightened feeling when you become the working mom and especially with social media, right, of everybody having it all more together.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like that? I mean, do you feel other days? I think because people will look at like a Rebecca Minkoff. You're literally a household name. You're the epitome of put together.
Right.
Do you have those feelings of being overwhelmed?
Oh, all the time. Yes, completely. And I think you just have to say, okay, my house is a mess. The laundry hasn't been done. I need to make dinner. I want to play with them, and I have 20 people emailing me and texting me. And sometimes it's just like, okay, now when I get home, the phone goes in the bag until it comes back out when they're out of bed. So I try and just do small things to feel in control, so that I don't feel like everything's happening all at once.
And what's your happy place? What's the me time? Do you get any me time?
I'm trying to work on that. I go to the gym twice a week, and that's not enough, but that's the me time that I've kind of carved out for myself.
Give yourself that little breath.
Yeah.
So we're taking questions, everybody, from Rebecca Minkoff, amazing fashion designer. Please weigh in at www.onmogul.com. We're live now. We're going to continue to hit refresh, take all of your questions. If you go to www.onmogul.com, in the comment section, you can add your question to the queue, and Rebecca's going to be answering all of our questions today. Here's another question. Hi, Rebecca, such a big fan. What is your advice for young women looking to go into fashion? Are there things they should definitely do, things they should definitely avoid?
I think if you want to be in fashion, sometimes people don't want to hear this, but you probably need to live in New York or in Los Angeles if you want to be in the hub of where it starts. There's plenty of opportunities outside of those two places, but the industry is in New York and a little bit in LA. And I would say, take a job that gets your foot in the door. We've had so many people that work for us that started in one area and are transitioning to another because they showed a love and a passion and a skill. And I've seen success with that. Internships are phenomenal things. I say, apply 4 times a year to the company of your dreams because, they're constantly receiving emails in their inbox for internships. So if you're always at the top of that, that's really helpful. And again, we've hired probably 10 to 15 interns in the last couple of years that have now become employees.
What was your path?
So I moved here to New York City when I was 18. I had an internship with a designer. It was paid. It was $6 an hour. And nowhere to live. I lived with my friend at Fordham in his dorm room. He would sneak me in every night. And after I lasted about a month, my parents were like, okay, you're not running home, so we'll help you find someone to live with. I was like, can you help me get an apartment? No. Cool. So lived with my cousin in her daughter's playroom, and in exchange for babysitting her daughter a couple times a week. And I did that for about a year until I saved up enough money to be able to rent a room from an elderly woman who gave me a curfew and made me clean up my room, which was really awkward. I was like, I pay rent here. And she's like, I don't care, it's my house. You have to pay, you have to clean up your room. But yes, and then I would steal food from her as well. But worked there for about 2 years. They hired me. I became an associate designer and eventually a senior designer there. When I started tinkering around with my own ideas, and the CEO was really my mentor. And she said, if you finish everything you have to get done, and there's still time left in the day, feel free to work on your own ideas from here. So with that, I started a 5-piece collection. I did this I Love New York shirt. I cut it up, bedazzled it because that was a big deal trend at the time. And I sent it to an actress who was a friend of mine on September 9th, 2001. Got there on the 13th. She wore it on Jay Leno. said my name, and from there I was making t-shirts every day for about 9 months. I was giving everything back to the Red Cross after September 11th happened, and then I at least at that point had my name where I could call a store and they would see me and they would see the rest of the collection, because they just said, I don't know why I know your name, but it sounds familiar. So I had a 4-year-long making my own clothing startup, and then decided I wanted to try a bag. Again, Jen asked me to put it in a movie she was in, and I had one, she had one, and people just kept stopping me on the street, and I thought, there's something to this, like the attention this handbag is getting. So a friend of mine wrote about it for Daily Candy, which was the only social media of its time. There wasn't this, if you will, and it became this overnight sensation. And that's when I knew, okay, now I gotta act fast. So I called my dad. I said, will you loan me some money so I can make the first production order? He said no. Constant thread in my life, but it's okay, maybe a mogul. And then I called my brother, and he said, yeah, I'll help you. Like, let's start this for real. Let's become partners. And he had his own company, having a very quiet, nice life in Florida. And when this took off, you know, we had a deal when we hit a certain number, he would move his family here. So he's done everything from mortgage his house, you know, max out his credit cards, move the whole family here to really make this happen.
Amazing. You mentioned along the way you had a mentor.
Yeah.
Who helped you.
Yeah.
How important was that, to have that mentorship relationship?
I think it was really important. I think the word is thrown around a lot today as like, find your mentor. And I think your mentorship happens when you don't necessarily realize it. So when she was mentoring me, she was giving me advice, but I never said, will you be my mentor? She was just kind of guiding me along and giving me helpful tips and putting me in situations where I didn't even know I was going to learn something. So she had me work in every part of the organization. And I thought to myself, I don't want to work in shipping. I don't want to clean up the storage room. But I got to know that area intimately, or I got to know a trade show intimately, or I got to know how to do sales calls. And so having all those skills really paid off later. So I think when you're looking to learn, you don't need to find that mentor that's going to, like, they're not your fairy godmother. You know, they're not going to, like, open the doors, but they can help you and hopefully educate you without you knowing that it's even happening.
And was it significant that it was a woman that was helping you with this? You know, sometimes we women, we get a bad rap for not necessarily helping each other out.
Right.
It's been one of the knocks. Some people have even implied that that's one reason we women maybe haven't gotten a little bit further. That it's not just the, you know, the system of male dominance, but sometimes the women that get a leg up aren't necessarily looking to help other women out. Did it make a difference that it was a woman helping you out?
I think I naturally felt more comfortable with her than, let's say, the designer. He was on the road almost all the time doing trunk shows. I can't tell you if it would have made a difference if it were a man, just because that wasn't the situation. But one thing I do talk about, as women now have more freedoms and have the ability to move to greater heights, the one thing I see, because we're a female almost only company, is the treatment of other women. And I said, you know what, there's another issue and you're bringing it up. It's actually a bigger problem, because now that we have this freedom and we have the right, to talk and have these things that men have always had, you have to take care of your people. And it can't be like, I'm gonna put you down so that I get ahead. That's not the way we're gonna win this. So I very much, when I hear about that within my organization, I'm like, the mother hen comes out, and do not mess with me when someone does that, because we're just doing everything we can to take each other backwards then.
All right, we've got a question. Who are your personal heroes? Who have you looked up to, and who has inspired you along the way?
One here, I guess, is my mom. I think this life, while hard growing up, of I'll teach you how to make it, I won't pay for this, but I'll buy you all the materials to do it yourself. You want to go to camp, cool, you fill out your forms, you figure out what camp. You want to dance, you sew your own point shoes. You know, all these things that you see all these moms always doing for their kids. I hated that. But it made me figure out how to do things, and if I wanted something, how to get it. So I would say her. I think anybody who's a working mom is someone I look up to, because the emotional and exhaustion and love and stress that you experience is intense. So the fact that we're doing that and raising children is pretty incredible. And there's been so many other like female entrepreneurs that I look up to, like Jessica Alba or Joanna Coles. I think they're these women that are just strong, they're kind, and they help each other out.
What about designers? Was there a designer that you looked up to when you were growing up?
There were. I admired Alexander McQueen for his creativity, and that if you look at his history, and there's a documentary on him I recommend everyone watch, he was actually a disruptor way earlier than anyone else with technology. We didn't view it as that because it was disguised as art, but I think if you look at what he did when he did it, he was disrupting before anyone else. And then Coco Chanel, not for her designs, but her biography is incredible because if you look at what she did as a woman in her time when women were so repressed and how she maybe used men to get to where she got, but she was in control of using them. And she was in control of saying, I need you to get to where I want to be. And so she was cause over it. Or just little things like spraying perfume in her dressing room to get women to like what they were smelling, and that was the launch of Chanel No. 5. Just very smart things that she did to really stand out and break through.
Right, and especially at a time when she didn't have anyone going before her, which is really amazing.
Yeah, she had nothing.
Okay, wondering, did you ever think you would get to be where you are today, and how difficult or surprising has your journey been?
I hoped I would get here. I never thought I would. I remember probably my second year of my own company just being like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, harder than I thought. I can't pay my rent, I can barely eat. Schlepping samples around, going door to door, and how is this gonna ever get easier? And I thought, what if it doesn't? Then what am I gonna do? So I'm eternally grateful. It's not been without hard work, sacrifices, and now we have an incredible team that also they just keep this engine humming.
What was the lowest point? I mean, you've referenced sleeping in a playroom, right?
Playroom.
You've referenced living with a woman that made you, as an adult, clean your room,
Yeah,
right? And you stole her food.
Yeah.
And then you just referenced schlepping samples around.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's still kind of at the starving artist phase, right?
Yes.
What did you have one of those moments? You know, those, like, this is it. There's a story of Madonna at Lincoln Center and laying down by the fountain and thinking, this is it, I'm never going to make it. That she said was her depth of misery.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have one of those moments, you know, that would be that pivotal moment in the movie of Rebecca Minkoff's life?
I think we've had several. I think some of the ones that come to mind is when the recession was about to happen, and our buyers sat her down over a Christmas dinner to celebrate the year, and they said, if there's a 5 in front of one of your bags, because my handbags used to be the affordable price of $5.95, so we won't carry the line anymore. So cut it by half and don't take the quality away, keep the leather the same. And we just were like, how are we gonna do this? So it was a lot of planning, many weeks of like, how do you restructure the company? How do you just say, goodbye margin, we're not gonna make any money for a long time, but maybe our consumer will love us. And then to ship those first products at the half price mark, and then nothing happened. We were like, we just, took away any hope of making money, and the consumer doesn't even care. But what had happened was the consumer, it takes sometimes 3 months for someone to realize what's happening in retail. So she figured it out. She was like, wow, my lifestyle has changed. The recession has impacted me, and you've listened to me. And the loyalty we got from that and the growth that came from that was something like 548% growth. Because she was like, wow, you hear me, you understand me, you get me. So all these times of hard work and you're at the bitter end and you might not make it have always been met with something greater at the other side of it.
But do you feel fortunate? Do you feel, in fashion obviously is an extremely competitive business where there may be other designers who had to similarly cut prices that didn't have the same fate. Do you feel fortunate?
I feel fortunate, but I also feel like between my brother and myself and our president at the time, we were this impenetrable triangle of just, we have to figure this out and we will not give up. And I think it's a mix of fortune, but it also persistence. And I think if you can persist through things, through the hard times, and you keep going back, and you get up after a failure, that's sometimes more important.
All right, great lessons. Again, this is Rebecca Minkoff's Ask a Mogul Anything live session. Please contribute your questions by going to www.onmogul.com. You can add your question to the comments and Rebecca will be taking your questions live. Okay, we've got a question from Maddie. How is the beauty and fashion industry changing over the next few years? Do you see everything shifting fully to online one day?
I don't think it's ever going to shift online fully one day. I think humans are social beings, and there's going to be a place where you connect, where you can touch and feel something. Maybe you'll buy it online afterwards, but there's going to be a need and desire to get together, touch and feel, to try on, to see someone speak, to taste something, to smell a candle. I think there are going to be these tactile things that digital is incredible. But you're going to want that just element of experiencing fashion and beauty with the other senses.
Do you see some hybrid forming somewhere in between the brick and mortar store and digital? Certainly there's some companies that are sprouting out that are sending samples where you can try them on. Do you see some more hybrids forming like that where people are going to have kind of like a happy medium because people are so busy and aren't necessarily getting to the stores themselves?
I think so. I mean, maybe in the future stores will be more like showrooms where you don't buy anything at all. You just look, touch and feel, get a sense of the brand, and then everything is just delivered to your house.
Or maybe have a better sense of sizing, right? Because
Exactly.
That's always such a challenge for us women, right?
Exactly.
How do you feel about that, by the way?
About sizing? The beautiful thing about a handbag and a shoe is you can be any size and that handbag will fit you. You can basically, with the exception of a wide or narrow foot, you can make a shoe work. So it is challenging you almost have to say, this is the type of body I'm going to design for, and I hope that other ones fit into it. And that's not fun, and but it's the most economical. So we try and take a general look at who our customer is. We used to make, sizes 2 to 14. No 14s were selling at all. So we said, let's make a 0, and then that started selling. So I think you just have to figure out who your customer is and sort of build your sizing around that.
And speaking of the sizing, what are your thoughts on, it's been an ongoing debate the last few years in terms of designing for the real woman, but this bit of there's the demand on one hand as society gets a little bit larger, but on the other hand, many designers have pushed back and said, but for example, but the size of my clothing is going to stay this. What are your thoughts in terms of this ongoing debate over how models should look, who designers should be designing for?
I think that I will never use a model who to me looks hungry or starving, even if she's not hungry or starving. If she has an appearance that I look at her and I'm like, that looks painful, they do not walk my runway. I want healthy girls, I want diverse women. We had 4 bloggers walk who were real girl sizes in our show, this September. September. So I think, if I start getting requests in for a size, I'm happy to make it. It's really more about who's asking for what size, and I'm happy to go wherever that is.
And what was the reception to the bloggers?
The reception was incredible. We had Chriselle Lim, we had Ariel from Something Navy, we had Peace Love Shea, and Gala Gonzalez, and Caroline Breland. And it was phenomenal. What was nice was they have loyal following, so they invited them in. A lot of their consumers got to come to the show and then meet them after. They came to the store for about an hour. We had a line around the block. And so it was really, again, taking that digital world where you just see someone on a screen and now you can meet her in real life. You can see how our clothes look on real girls, not, a 6-foot model.
And how important have bloggers become to you in the industry?
Bloggers have become extremely important. We were basically the first brand to even talk to them. We were the first brand to, we cast Rumi Neely in our show in 2009. We had sit-downs. People said, you're crazy. Bloggers are D-list celebrities. They're dirty. You're going to ruin your brand. And my brother and I very much felt like we don't agree. And we think that the consumer is going to admire them maybe more so than a model or a celebrity. And it's become that. So we work with tons of bloggers. Some have huge followings. Some have 10,000. I think it's all a matter of picking women that are the right fit for the brand.
So in terms of, I've got another question for this woman wants to know about self-doubt. Do you ever have moments of self-doubt, or did you along the way? And if so, what did you do to push through it?
I think if anyone ever tells you they didn't have self-doubt, they're lying. I've had it, I still have it, and I think the one thing that you have to do when you have that is you have to somehow, on the outside, if you can't get over it yourself, you have to somehow on the outside act like you don't have it. And in almost 99% of those cases, the other person's gonna believe you. So I think that and when you get good and you start practicing pushing through that and pushing it off to the sides, and you know what, that's noise, that's not me, that's other crap coming in. When you get better at that, it's almost like a muscle, and you just start flexing that muscle, and then you say, okay, cool, thanks for the information, thanks for the criticism, F you, pushing it to the side, moving on. And I think that that will get less the less you listen to it. The more you listen to it, the bigger it's gonna get, it's gonna grow, like a bad wart.
I've got a question from Courtney. I'm a huge fan of yours. She writes, what advice would you give to someone who has a different style than everybody else? Case in point, I walked into work today wearing cute black booties, cat eye sunglasses, a floppy hat, and a black sweater dress. I walk into work and immediately everyone tells me that Halloween isn't here yet and I should stop dressing like a witch. Now I know they're joking with me, but comments like that can really hurt. Personal style is a form of expression. What advice would you give to someone who struggles with being truly themselves when others critique them? What is your inspiration for art, and does that inspiration ever vary?
I think that you should just decide, are you dressing for others or are you dressing for yourself? Because if you're dressing for yourself, then it doesn't really matter what other people think. And you know, pushing boundaries, sometimes, you know, you have the most successful artists in the world getting criticized. So don't listen to them. If you're happy with how you look, go with it.
Good advice. All right, we've got a question from Melanie. Rebecca, what an honor. I was one of the hijab wearing women, thankful enough to sit up front at your show this past weekend. It was such a kick-ass show, and thank you for facilitating my dream come true of seeing Olivia Palermo in person. My question as a designer for Muslim women here in New York City, a challenge I face is spreading myself too thin in different categories. You've been so successful in many different categories, be it handbags, footwear, accessories, or apparel. How do you navigate the trajectory of these different categories? Do you conquer one category first before moving over into others, or is it more of an all-at-once approach? Thank you so much for doing this. You're an inspiration.
Oh, cool. Well, I saw you in the audience, so I'm glad you came. I say, you know, we spent 4 years focusing on handbags before we said, okay, now we have to do something, even if we're not ready, because we never want to get pigeonholed and stuck as this, you're only a handbag brand. I had an apparel background, so we decided to really launch the clothing, and then the next natural progression was shoes, then jewelry, and I think now we have cold weather / scarves. So I think each time we wanted to just keep launching, even if, you know, there weren't enough people in the company to handle it, because we knew that at the end of the day, this is a lifestyle brand, and we want everyone to be able to enjoy a piece of it.
Okay, question. Hello, Rebecca. I wonder, given the state of the industry and the impact it has on the environment and workers in the supply chain, does sustainability ever enter into your designs and business model? How do you ensure that your brand is ethical?
So what we did with See by Wear is probably the most transformative to the industry as a whole, because we cut off fast fashion at the knees, and fast fashion is the #1 producer of waste in this industry, whether it be environmental waste, leftovers, fabric, you name it, and treatment of people. So by the embargo of the images not being seen, them being able to not copy us, now we get to market first. The the consumer pays, you know, for our goods. We have ethical treatment. You know, we ship in sustainable packaging. So I think that if everybody did this, then you wouldn't want to go to a fast fashion retailer, because they wouldn't have anything that's on trend and cheaper. And that model would hopefully disintegrate. And then if you wanted something, you'd go to the person who created it.
Great answer. Let's see. We've got a question. When you are designing a new collection, who do you imagine is the woman wearing it?
So there are always different women, different places, different sort of ideas floating through my head. But at the end of the day, I'm designing for a woman who wants to lead a more fearless life. So it's always that woman who is taking that first step in something. And it might not be her first job or her first interview. It's the first time she doesn't call a guy back. Mm-hmm. It's the first time she quits. So it's these moments in her life that we want to be there for her and have her be like, you know, I got my jacket on and I feel good about this decision.
Excellent. I love that. Question. Hi, Rebecca. I'm always curious to know how it all began. If you could meet your 13-year-old self, what advice would you give her? And how about your 21-year-old self? Thank you so much for your time.
So my 13-year-old self, I was a double A and I had braces and I hadn't grown into my nose yet. So I would say, when the braces come off, you will be able to smile without being ashamed. You will eventually have a chest that you wish was that small again. And one day a boy will kiss you.
That's very sweet. What about the 21-year-old self?
21-year-old self, I would say you should have broken up with that guy a lot sooner. And don't worry, you know, everything you wanted, everything you moved here for, everything you've sacrificed, you know, until now is gonna be okay.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Here's a question from Rachel. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned in terms of heartbreak?
The biggest lesson that I learned in terms of heartbreak, on, I guess I'll say the partner side, was I was distraught for probably 2 or 3 years over a guy that had broken my heart. And the minute I actually flew out to LA to kind of rekindle it, and that's when I met my husband. And the minute I met the right guy, it was shocking to me that I had lamented for 2 years, wasted all this time, and then I met the right one, and I was like, I didn't even think about it. It didn't even occur to me anymore. So I think that you have to know that, you know, there's 7 billion souls on this planet. You know, there's not just one.
That's great. But it was a period of 2 years.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. I don't have anything to say except it sucks. I don't have any life lessons to help you through heartbreak.
And your husband now, he's a director? Is that right?
Yeah, he's a director.
So how is it, 2 artists coming together?
I think it's good. It's very good that we are not in the same industry. I did date a fashion designer once, and we started talking about cutting up patterns and fabric qualities, and then I was like, you know what? This is not going to work for me. I don't want to talk about my work when I get home. And so it's been nice because we just come from different angles on things, and we don't even really have to talk about work stuff because we just want to talk about other, like our family.
But yet you're both creative,
yeah.
which is great. So
yeah.
You've got that as a common ground. What has Rebecca? I admire you so much. This is from Kathy May. You are one of my greatest role models. How have you enjoyed working with your brother? And do you see it as a benefit to work with family?
So my brother, you know, again, sacrificed almost everything to do this. So we've had a great run. You know, we've really tried to respect each other's lanes and our own expertises. That being said, we're brother and sister. Sometimes we can fight, disagree, and because we are brother and sister, I think we're maybe more honest than one might be with a business partner. But we now go kind of twice a year. We go see almost like a relationship counselor, and that's been really helpful because we sort of air out all of our issues, get it on the table, handle it, and then go back to work. And since we started doing that, it's been extremely helpful. There's benefits with doing it with a member of your family. I don't know which member of your family you're talking about. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think the main thing is you have to find someone that you trust and that has, again, a strength that you don't have.
And in terms of, it's so interesting that you went to the relationship counselor. What precipitated that? Was that your idea?
It was my idea because we had a period of not getting along, and it was bleeding into our personal life. So, you know, we have a very close family. So I think our spouses would be like, it's really nice that you guys are being nice to each other, but you're not talking at, you know, Thanksgiving, right? Or it's really nice that you're not arguing and showing us any of this, but we can tell that you guys aren't interacting at all, even though no one feels anything else. And so it got to the point where I was like, you know what, let's just set this up, see if it works. And it did, and it's been great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question from Boyana. Hi Rebecca, what do you think are the actions you took that made you successful? Also, how is life with kids in New York City?
I think the actions that I took that made the difference between our success and failure is an element of fearlessness, which you have to have if you want to be an entrepreneur. I think finding a white space, knowing that communication in however way you do it is your most powerful tool. And you have to constantly be out there, meeting people, talking to people, promoting your product. So if you have issues with communicating or you're shy, I don't recommend you be, you have to be in a spotlight to a degree to be in the fashion industry if you want your own line. And I would say, again, surround yourself with strength, with people that can do what you can't. And it's okay, it's far better to know what you can't do than to pretend, because you'll only be better at business if you know what you're not good at.
And raising kids in New York City?
Raising kids in New York City. We moved out of the city into Brooklyn when my son was 1.5 years because we didn't want to constantly yank him back off the sidewalk, and we wanted an element of a lawn. So we moved to Dumbo, and there's a big park in front of our apartment, and it's really been great. They're thriving, they're stimulated all the time, and at a moment's notice we can walk outside and go to restaurants. So I think I would not change that. I just try and get them out into nature on the weekends and get them running outside, away from the city, so that they can experience that, oh, I was in the backyard and my mom wasn't watching me. Like those things that you might take for granted if you don't live here.
And in terms of, do they have any sense of, how aware are they of what you do? Were they, for example, at the fashion show, do they see mommy out in action?
So my son has come to all my shows, so he has some sense. He still hasn't figured out totally, he can't read, but he always knows my name. He's like, Mommy, another box, Mommy, another bag, Mommy, why is your name on a shoe? So he gets it. My daughter, that was the first one we brought her to, and she was basically asleep through it. But she does love going into my closet and trying on all my bags. So I think she's got a sense of like, I got a mom with a lot of stuff.
And how is it with clothes? I mean, do you have fun dressing them?
I really thought I would be better at it. I really thought I would be like, I would have the most stylishly dressed kids, and I'm probably failing at that at the moment.
Well, how into clothes are they so far?
So my son only likes to wear, I have 2 pairs of the exact same jeans, and they're the only jeans he'll wear because he likes them really tight. I did not do this to him. They have to be like rock and roll tight is what he calls it. And there's only one supplier of that, unfortunately, at the moment. And short shirts that just touch his waistband. Again, I have nothing to do with it.
Wow.
So we're having a little bit of a crisis. I have to buy like size 3 shirts to fit him that are small enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm kind of impressed though. He already has very much his own sense of style.
Very much so, and we're running out of the things that he wants, and he wants to wear them every day, like Mark Zuckerberg style. So it's a challenge to like sometimes like go to the dirty laundry and just get whatever you want to wear, just wear it. It's fine.
Yeah, I've had those moments, definitely. But I have to ask. I'm sure you've been asked. You must be asked this all the time. Do you think about doing a kids collection?
I have thought about it, and I said when there's someone else to do all the not fun parts of design, and a team, and I won't get any more gray hair, then yes, we can start a children's line.
How do you feel? I mean, there have been so many amazing collaborations the last few years. How do you feel about the whole collaboration aspect? I mean, some of these big collaboration sales with the Targets, the H&Ms.
I think if it works for a designer, I think it's great. I think especially with the H&Ms, it gets your name into a global market. So if it works for you, do it.
Have you looked at it?
We've not looked at it, no. We feel with our price points, they're really sharp, and I can't see today going lower and compromising quality.
Well, we want to talk about the quality and the wonders of your items. You've got some things for the fall collection. We want to make sure that we include a look, and very selfishly we want to, because it's a treat for viewers to be able to see some items from the new collection. And are these literally hot off the presses?
Hot off the presses, hot off the runway show. We have Vanna here to hand me the items. So these were kind of the 2 hero bags that walked the show. This is exclusively at our store and online. The entire collection was inspired by this idea of this gypset lifestyle that I feel a lot of women are leading, where they're traveling a lot for work or for pleasure and picking up kind of your favorite items along the way. So these are some of my favorite cities. And there's a big trend happening now in like more box bags. This is a smaller one. It comes with a crossbody strap. A little bit softer if this one seems like a suitcase to you, but I love it. And then we added a bunch of these fur pom-poms to everything just because they're really cute. So these are 2 new hot off the press bags that walked in the show.
That's great, and fur's so hot for fall as well, right?
Yeah,
so it can tie in with so many things.
And then for us, booties are really key for fall. So this was our Lulu shoe with embroidery. And it's an easy boot that I feel like you can wear it literally all day, but then you can go out and still feel like you are dressed up. And then the sleeper hit, but this velvet that we also had in the show. It's just a great color. It feels luxurious.
And velvet's also so hot for fall.
Velvet is very hot for fall.
Velvet is back.
And then last but not least, one of the things that keeps me up at night is what's happening in the world. And after the last attack, I believe in Nice, I said, you know what? I was sick to my stomach, and I thought there has to be something that I can do that's greater than fashion. And I'm going to have, the attention of a lot of eyeballs for 15 minutes for my show. And what can I do that isn't about a hashtag? It's actually about action. So through a friend, I met this street artist. Her name is Gil. She's one of a handful of female street graffiti artists, which is a rare thing. And we had her spray paint 22 different jackets with different either a peace sign or love is love, hashtag unite. And for the finale for the show, all 22 models and me, because I never like to leave the runway, we walked the finale, we all turned around, there was this moment where everyone could see all the writing on the jackets. And then all the jackets went up for sale with all the proceeds going to a human rights organization called Not On Our Watch. So it was, spreading a message of something greater, but then you can actually contribute to it, and the money goes to fostering more awareness and combating human rights abuses.
Are they all gone now?
We have like maybe 3 left. You should act soon. They're online or in our stores. But I think it was just this idea that we took our best-selling jacket, partnered with an incredible artist, and gave something back. So this is the final, one of the last 3.
Well, in that case, you're paying it forward in more ways than one, right? Both for a cause and for this artist. And so, what's been the response to this artist's work?
Phenomenal. We want to do a bigger installation with her in our LA store and do more things with her, just because she works in also the female empowerment space. Like, wants to push that forward, and that's right up my alley. So
we have just a few minutes left, so anyone who wants to contribute any more questions to Rebecca, we're at www.onmogul.com. You can ask Rebecca anything about her fall collection, what's hot for fall, about being a woman, a mogul in the 21st century. That's at www.onmogul.com. We'll hit refresh a couple more times to get any last questions in. But Rebecca, I wanted to ask you, in terms of, you're so much about giving back, which is so admirable. Where did that come from?
I think that comes from probably simultaneous to me launching my collection. I also started volunteering for an artist center here in Manhattan that was really all about helping up-and-coming artists to gain exposure to their careers, mentors, and produce events. So I would work from 9 to 3 every day, and then I would go up and help produce events to get speakers in. Now it sounds normal. You have it at Soho House, you have it at Noy House. But that wasn't really happening back in the early 2000s. And I just had this element of, I want to help other people. And so we sort of figured out, okay, where do I want to help other people? How do I want to help them? Mostly it's in the female space, right? Women helping women. This particular case was just, I was so nauseous, and am so nauseous with what is happening that it was just like, I have to do something. I can't sleep at night.
That's amazing. But did you get it from somewhere prior to that? Even what I find so striking, because even what you were mentioning, after 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't established the way you are now, but you were already giving back.
Right. I think, I can't tell you where it comes from. I I just think when you see atrocities, the biggest crime to me is not doing something. So I think if we had more people doing things and more millennials doing something and speaking out and volunteering, I think we'd be in a vastly different situation.
What do you want to do, say 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Where do you want to be?
Oh wow. 5 years from now, we would love to have more of a global presence. We already have stores in Hong Kong, and we have 2 in Hong Kong, and I'm actually going to Dubai for the first time. We're going to be opening up 2 stores, one in Abu Dhabi and one in Qatar. So I think having even more Rebecca Minkoff stores. 10 years from now, I'm hoping that I could maybe take some time off, not a long time, but I would love to just travel the world with my children. Even if it was a 3-month, journey, I would love to be able to just go on an adventure as a family and kind of just check out for a minute. But that's a long time from now.
We've talked a lot about, obviously with Mogul, at Mogul we talk so much about women's issues. It's interesting in the fashion industry. When we think about fashion, it's women wearing the clothes, but behind the scenes, is there still sexism? It's interesting. Women are the big consumers of fashion. But what's it like breaking into the industry? Did you feel a difficulty as a woman breaking through?
I didn't feel any difficulty from men, and I think that's unique to the fashion industry. I think you feel it with women, and that's why I get so angry when I see it happening in my own office. Or you see editors doing it, to other people. Even in, with I'm part of the CFDA. Even if you look at the amount of male nominees versus female nominees, like the female nominees keep not getting nominated, and the males get the awards. It's like, why is that? So I think that it's just women are keeping each other down, and that's why I'm very passionate about let's not do that.
In terms of fashion, it's all about remaining relevant, right?
Mm-hmm.
How hard is that, especially now? With social media, with so much going on, is it harder than ever, or is it easier?
I think it's both. Your relevancy and lifespan is much shorter. Every day, it's almost like a news cycle. So we can come out with a bag, and then she wants to come back to the store a week later and see a new bag or a new shipment, or she's bored. And I think in the past, you probably had 3 months where she would come and be excited about all the things, or maybe you had a month. And I think this immediacy, I was talking about this the other day with my PR director. I said, we do something huge, and then the next day it's old news. We don't even get the chance to be like, oh my God, how cool was that? That was transformative. Because all right, what's the next news cycle we're going to be mentioned in? So I think it's like that with clothing. But on the flip side, because I have now access to images and creators from all over the world, I can also get inspired far quickly. I don't have to go take an inspiration ship and be gone for 2 weeks, although I'd love that, to get inspired. I can, go virtually anywhere from my computer and kind of get inspired with whatever's happening.
I'm checking to see if we've got any last questions. Anybody wants to get one or two questions in under the wire, we're at www.onmogul.com with Rebecca Minkoff. I briefly, while I'm checking, as we finish refreshing, but I wanted to ask, we touched on some of the trends for fall, and you've got some amazing items. In addition to velvet, being one of the looks, in addition to fur, what else is hot for fall? What do you forecast as being new and different? And if someone's going to make any investment in any pieces for fall, what would you advise that they invest in?
I think if you live in a place that has cold weather, I think outerwear is key. We have some really great suede. We have this incredible fur-lined jacket that's multicolored that zips out and it can also be a vest. I think if you're lucky enough to be somewhere where it is not hot, we have these incredible confetti yarn sweaters, a little bit of a cold shoulder, just always something a little interesting, and just more booties.
I love the booties. No, it's great. And they've been around for, the booties have had a comeback for a couple of years. Do you see them going away anytime soon?
I don't, because I think they're extremely versatile. You can wear them with jeans, you can wear them with a dress. So I think as long as you have something that's comfortable and can be multi-purposed.
We've got a question, and you've touched on this a little bit, but what are your plans for the future expansion of the Rebecca Minkoff empire? You talked about going global,
Yep.
but in how often are you and your brother looking at where we're going?
We're looking at it every day. I think we have conversations, what is our 3, 5, 10-year plan? We're also opening our Chicago store later this year, so that's another stateside store. And then we're going to explore, now that we'll have our 4 key locations, what is the future of retail outside of Main Street America? How do we touch a girl in Alabama and Idaho and Iowa and Ohio in these smaller towns? Because we're wanting to experiment with what that model would look like.
Great. Well, we thank you so much, Rebecca. You brought so much to all of us today in terms of advice for how to lead. We want to ask one last just blanket question, which is one of the big missions of Mogul, and specifically the Ask a Mogul Anything series. What's your advice of what it takes to succeed in the 21st century in terms of, if you had a couple of bits of advice to give? We've got women all over the world who are looking to Mogul for this kind of guidance and community. What's your advice to the women in terms of what you think are 2 or 3 things that it really takes to succeed in the 21st century?
I think there's a misconception that to be successful, it's going to be easy. And I think the number one thing I would say is you have to work your butt off. You have to be willing to sacrifice, and thank God for youth. In your youth, late nights, holidays, friends, in order to achieve your dream. And if your dream was just handed to you, it probably wouldn't feel as valuable. So I think that's my number one thing. I think you're going to get told no all the time. We're still told no. We were told no about our street show, and then the mayor's office said, I disagree. So it's what you do with that no. It's turning that no into a yes. And I think you have to be fearless. You have to know that when you're going out on your own and creating your own reality, you have to be a little bit fearless. And if you have that fear, again, don't listen to it.
Wonderful. This has been so inspiring.
Okay.
We're so grateful to have had Rebecca Minkoff here. And for verbatim of her answers, you can log back on to Mogul later today, where you'll be able to see a full transcription of her answers to all of your wonderful questions. That's at www.onmogul.com. Rebecca, thank you so much.
Thank you.